I feel the spirit moving in me. I feel the spirit moving in me.
Well, last week, we talked about, and I hope you experienced this week, about letting go of the storyline, the mind's story that the mind tells you. We notice that sometimes an event happens. It could be something simple, it could be something huge, it could be something ordinary. And then, like a busy screenwriter, the brain rushes in. Commentary, predictions, dramatic music. A whole narrative is created in the space of a breath. And just noticing the story helps, right? It really does. There's something really powerful about being able to stand back and be aware that your mind is creating a story, right? Oh, that's a story. Well, maybe that's not what really happened, but it's a story that the mind is telling you or me, right? So today, we're going to go a little deeper. Are you ready? I want to start with a question. It seems simple, but follow it honestly, and it may change the perspective of your life, right? The question is, who's doing the noticing? Think about that for a minute. Right now, in this room, you're probably having some kind of an inner experience. I know I can say that because I do. Maybe it's a thought about did I leave the stove on? Right? Did I leave the toast in the toaster? Is the oven still on? Or maybe there's a feeling in your chest, a tightness or a warmth. Maybe there's the voice of your inner narrator commenting on what I'm saying, right? Who's aware of that? Who is aware of what's happening in your environment, in your mind? Who just noticed the thought? Who is listening to the inner narrator? And the truth of it is, the moment that you can observe a thought, you are not identical to that thought. Right? When we notice a thought, then we realize that we are separate from that thought. And that's what we're going to talk about today. You can see the thought, but you recognize that you are not the thought. Right? There's a you behind the thought watching, right? And that watcher, that quiet, steady presence is what we're going to explore today. So we're going to look at the gap between the thinker and the noticer. Now there's an interesting teaching in contemplative philosophy that says, it blows my mind. Maybe it'll blow yours too, but not too much. Don't make a mess, right? We don't want to have to clean up the sanctuary when you're gone. But the thing that I want you to think about is that the eye cannot see itself. Think about what that means, right? Your eye can see everything in this room. It can see people's faces. It can see the chair. It can see the light coming through the window. But one thing it can't perceive is itself. The seeing organ that we have cannot be the object that's being seen at the same time. And the mind is similar. That the part of you that cannot fully think itself, but something else can observe it. And I'll explain it this way. It's a little easier when you think of it this way. You've all been to a movie theater, right? And you've seen the screen, and the screen is not the movie. The screen is a cinema. It's just there, steady, white. Storm scenes play across it. Dramatic scenes play across the screen. Tragedies, comedies. The screen receives all of it. And then the credits roll and the theater empties. The screen is still there, unchanged, unharmed by all of the action that it's just pictured. And you have a screen just like that inside you. You have something that receives every experience. Joy, grief, fear, happiness, wonder, without being permanently affected by any of them. You see where we're going? That gap between the one who thinks and the ones who notices the thinking, that gap is the doorway that I'm going to invite you into today. That's where your freedom lies. So let's look at some ancient traditions that talk about this that you may or may not know of. Some of you may know Ramana Maharishi. In the Vedantic tradition of Hinduism, this witnessing is called sakoi, right? It's sakchi, excuse me. It's the witness consciousness. Ramana Maharishi, one of the great sages of the 20th century, made it a cornerstone of his entire teaching. He offered a practice, though simple, very profound. He asked us to ask, who am I? Who am I? Who are you? Who are you? Not philosophically, not abstractly, but in this moment. We can follow every thought back to the source and ask, who is aware of this? Who is that is aware of your experience right now? He believed, and I think it's right, that this inquiry, followed by honesty, leads us back to who we really are. A presence that is prior to every thought, prior to every story, prior to every identity that you have ever constructed. Buddhism calls this mindful awareness suti, right? The Buddha taught students to observe the arising and the passing of thoughts in the same way you might observe clouds in the sky. He would say, you're not the clouds, right? You're not the sky. You are the one who sees them. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a term called rigpa, often translated as pure awareness. It's described as luminous, self-knowing, already present. You don't manufacture it, you uncover it. And many of us can probably relate to Christian mysticism. In the Christian mystical tradition, Elijah was exhausted, right? He's running for his life, and he hears the voice of God. And how does it come? Not in the wind that created the mountains, not in the earthquake that destroyed the land, not in the fire, but it comes in the still, small voice. I love that, right? All the noise, all the drama, and the presence is the still, small voice that we can hear when we attune ourselves to being receptive to hear it. Teresa of Avila called it the inner castle, the inner room of silence that's so deep that nothing can disturb it. In contemporary psychology, in what's called acceptance and commitment therapy, it's Stephen Hayes describes what he calls, that's right, there is a thought, there is a feeling, and I am the one who notices. This is the key to where we're going today. There is a thought. We have thoughts. Anybody have thoughts? Right? Anybody have feelings? Right? Okay, you're not the thought or the feeling. You are the one who notices them. Right? Oh, there's a thought. Oh, I just had a thought. Oh, I just had a feeling. And lots of times we tend to think that we are the thought, that we are the feeling. Oh, we say, oh, I am so angry. What if you're not? What if it's just a thought? What if it's just a feeling? What if it's not the truth of who you are? I love that because this is a common theme that's happened throughout the centuries. It's not just a new idea. However, science is just beginning to look at it and go, wow, isn't this interesting? Right? Neuroscientists have discovered a network in the brain they call the default mode network. This is a network that activates when we're not focused on physical things, right? When we're rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet or replaying the ones that already have. Ever done that? This is that area that we want to begin to be aware of. And this is the mind-blowing thing. This is what I'm going to show you in a second. I think is one of the most profound reasons that we should meditate, right? Because scientists found that long-term meditators can observe the stories, can observe the ruminations, can observe that mental clatter without being swept away by it. Right? It's being able, when we meditate, we learn to be able to separate ourselves from the story, to separate ourselves from the activity. You ever wonder why people who meditate so often are so calm? Right? Because they're not letting the stories, the feelings, the anger influence how they are in the world. Right? Anybody want to be like that? Right? You notice the storm, you notice the disagreement, you notice the anger, but it's not yours. You're able to stand back and be the observer and watch it. And the witness consciousness isn't supernatural. It's your mind's natural state, right? We're just taught to forget that we have the ability to observe ourselves. These are Emily's paintings. And I want to tell you a story that what happened to me the day after Emily died. She was a watercolor artist, as you know. She had this amazing ability to paint and to capture the light in the paintings, right? And it's a little hard to tell, these aren't the greatest representations, but if you were actually looking at her painting, you could see the amazing ability that she had to capture the light and the feeling. I told her, sometimes it feels like, when I look at your paintings, like I'm stepping into peace. And she was funny, too. I think she got that from me. Because she had to. It was a survive. Either she learned to be funny, or she would have kicked me out of the house years ago. She was quietly funny. Sometimes she would say something, and I wouldn't realize the humor in it for 15 or 20 seconds later. Sometimes it was a day later. Oh, I know what you meant. She made the world feel more delightful, didn't she? And then she was gone. Wow. The morning after, I woke up, it was dark. I lay there in the silence, a silence that grief creates. A silence that is somehow louder than noise. And my mind started to do, it sounded pretty much like that. My mind started to do what minds do. Started scrolling, remembering the last time we went out to dinner, remembering the things she meant to me. That lunch at Mama's that we never got to have. And that voice in my head said, too late, too late, too late. And sometime later, weeks later, there was a moment, it wasn't planned. I didn't achieve it through spiritual effort. But something shifted, right? Very quietly, I was aware that I was watching my grief. Not numb to it, not above it, not bypassing it, still completely in it. The way you are when you're in the ocean and you get hit by a wave, right? You're still present to the wave. But there was something, I think of it like a millimeter of space between me and the wave of grief, where it's like, oh, now I see it. I don't have to be as caught up in it, right? It doesn't have to ruin my whole day, which it did for many days. But now I can see the wave coming, and I can feel it hitting me, and I can stand in the midst of it and let it pass. I noticed the thought, I noticed the ache, I noticed the loop in my mind going back to what was lost. And something in me just watched. That's where I am now. I just watch. Without trying to fix it. Without trying to give it meaning. Without performing an okayness. Just watching. The grief was real. It's still real. I want to tell you what the witness gave me in that moment, my witness. It gave me the capacity to be in the pain without being the pain. Do you see the difference? It gave me the steadiness of the screen while the storm still played. And the point of that is the witness doesn't fix the loss. The witness doesn't fix the anger. The witness doesn't fix the distraction, the hurt. It just absorbs. It just watches. It just witnesses. So how do we do this? How do we access that capacity when we're lying awake in the dark, when we're in the middle of a difficult conversation, right? A stressful situation, or a loop of the anxious thought that won't quit? Well, I've got an idea. First of all, meditate more. Right? Because this is what awareness is. This is what being on the spiritual path is. It's being able to be totally present in the world and respond with love. Right? Because we're not letting ourselves be a part of the story. We're witnessing it. So, how do we do this? How do we wake the witness in daily life? Well, I like to think of taking 3 deep breaths. Right? Just stop. When you feel it coming, when you feel the waves coming, anybody ever felt that before? It's like, oh, here it comes. Stop. Forget you. Remember who's in charge here. You're in charge here, right? You're in charge of your consciousness. You're in charge of your experience. So just stop and take a breath. And take the breath with me. Just breathe in together. Breathing in. And you might say, who is aware right now? Who is aware? Ask yourself, who is aware? Taking a breath. Who is aware? You don't have to answer it. You don't have to get to some elevated spiritual state, right? Just asking the question brings you present, shifts you out of the stream, out of the chaos, into the moment of strength to recognize the truth of who you are. And let's take another breath together, breathing in. Who's noticing? Who's noticing? Your truth, your spirit is noticing. Let's take a third breath together just to complete the practice. Do you feel different already? Yeah. Because when we breathe, it brings us into this moment. And this is where love is. This is where truth is. This is where life is, right here. And the second thing we can do, after we've taken 3 breaths, is to label the weather. Pretend like you're a weather person, right? Instead of saying, I am anxious, what if you said, oh, there's a thought of anxiety, right? You're not denying it. You're just saying, there's a, instead of saying, oh, I am so angry, pulling yourself into it, what if you just said, oh, there's a thought of anger? Isn't that interesting? Everybody ever have that? Right? And we have a tendency to want to embrace it, right? Oh, just notice it. Yeah. There's a thought of anger. How about that? right? And all the mind wants to do is just want you to notice it. So we just notice it, recognize, I don't have to let this be my story. I can just notice it. Or you might say, instead of saying, I am angry, you might say, oh, I notice anger rising. Right? Oh, isn't that interesting? Anger is present. All right then. Then once we notice it, it begins to disseminate, to dissolve. Because all it wants to do is let us know that it's there. Right? We're not denying the feeling. We're not suppressing it. We're describing it the way a weather reporter describes a storm. Interested, present, but not the storm. Wow, that's a tiny little grammatical shift from I am to I notice. You might even say, oh, maybe you felt this before. Oh, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of anxiousness, or there's a lot of urgency happening right now, right? There's some residue from an earlier conversation. There's a thought that I should have handled something differently. All right. Instead of beating ourselves up about it, just acknowledge, oh yeah, I could have done this differently. Anybody ever think that way before? Oh God, I wish I had done something different. I hadn't said that. I find myself in that situation all the time. I try to be funny and I end up insulting somebody, for God's sakes. What, you can't take a joke? What? Don't you know when I'm joking? I think I know. Let's see, I've got this someplace. Here we go. I am not the story. I am the space in which the story arises. Let's say that together. I am not the story. I am the space in which the story arises. In Unity, we often talk about Christ consciousness. Anybody ever used that term before? Right? It's not something that's external. It's not a figure that's separate from us, but it's the divine nature that's already present, right? Within us, within everyone. The divine I am. Now, I want to suggest, think about this, that the other traditions we've talked about, and many more, who talk about the witness consciousness and what neuroscience calls the observing self, is exactly what Unity means by Christ consciousness. You see now? So we're developing the spiritual muscles to see what's happening in our world and in our lives from the Christ consciousness, right? It's a part of you, a part of us that remains when we strip away every level, every role, every story. Before I was a minister, before I am a friend who is grieving, before I'm a person with opinions and habits and fears and bad jokes. Right? There is the I am, the luminous, steady, already present part of us who's right here. The still small voice was never absent. It's been speaking to you all along. But sometimes we're just a little too loud to hear it. Right? So I'll end where I began. Who is doing the noticing? Think about that honestly. Not just this morning, but when the hard moments come, when the grief arrives, when the anger shows up, when the frustration shows up, when the loop appears not to want to stop, when the story has you totally convinced. But I know it won't happen because you've heard this message today and last week. So who is aware of this? Because the witness isn't something you build, it's something you achieve through meditation, through spiritual effort. It's something you uncover, something that has always been there, quietly present through every storm that you've ever witnessed. You are the one who sees. You are not the storm. You are not the story. You are the one who sees. And that's always been enough. I am the awareness behind the thought, the peace beneath the storm, the presence that never leaves. Let's say this together. I am the awareness behind the thought, the peace beneath the storm, the presence that never leaves. And I invite you to close your eyes. Let's go to that place. I am the awareness behind the thought, the peace behind the storm, the presence that never leaves, the Christ presence, universal love, joy, beingness. I am. Breathing in, breathing out. Imagine that you could shine this light within and recognize who you are. That you are the awareness. You are the peace. You are the love. You are the presence. Breathing. Being. You are the light. This is who you are. This is who you are. Let's just hold this thought and this moment together. Breathing in, absorbing all that you are. Let it be in every space, every cell, every tissue. The light, the peace, the wisdom, the presence. And so it is. I invite you to begin to bring your awareness back to this moment. And to open your eyes when you're ready. Namaste. Enough of this stuff. Why don't we stand? And take a deep breath. Breathe in and be in this moment. So let's pray together for ourselves, for our country, for the world, for all life. The prayer for protection, which begins, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us wherever we are. God is. Thank you for being here today. Bless you out there watching us on Facebook.
Where I live, they're all rain.